Alrighty. Oh, I did not pause. I didn't pause. Oh, I hit the wrong pedal too. Gosh dang it, chat. Well, at least we unmuted ourselves this time. Hello, everyone. How's it going? I realize that the camera's a little far over there. How are y'all? It has been 4 days since we last streamed. Gosh, that feels so weird. No, it's not been 4 days. No, that's wrong. It's been 3 days. Aha. I was off by a day. Damn. What a shame. That's so awkward, chat. I am just finishing up some stuff on my end. But we are getting everything all set up here. So, for y'all that don't know, hello, my name is Ava. I'm a 21-year-old gender fluid femboy whose pronouns are he, she, they, and if you are some motherfucking inclined little bitch. And today we will be doing story time. So I have a book that I absolutely adore, at least from the stuff I've read thus far, called The House of Leaves, and we'll be reading it today. I have it set up to where I can show specific pages if there's like an interesting little like just writing style or stuff like that, but most of the time it'll just be me sitting here and reading a book to y'all. Hence the name Story Time. I honestly am super excited about this. It'll be a pretty fun series to go through as well. And yeah, I'm looking forward to it quite a bit. It'll be good. So, that is our plan for today. We're going to give a little bit of time here. We said we would start at 7 p.m., so we'll probably wait until 7 p.m. to start. Just because I like I like doing that, you know. All the fun stuff. Yippee. Yeah, I don't think. Oh, there's an ad break. Oh, chat, look at that. Oh, that's so cool. Look at that. I don't know who can see that or not, but there's an ads widget now. That's sick. I love that. That is so fancy. We also do have a bunch of new like channel point redemptions that you can do, chat. So yeah, it is really cool. I spent too much time with that. This little add-on, this little ads add-on thing is one of them that I think is pretty cool. So you can also see the progress bar down here. Okay. We'll give it just a little bit as we load it up. Oop, I missed. I gotta. Oh, that's not how that goes, chat. I was trying to do that. Well, we'll give it a little bit while we let the ads run. So fun times. But yeah, how's everyone been? How's everyone doing? Hopefully doing well. Doing a totally normal story time here, chat. Yippee. I'm actually excited about this. I'm really thinking this will be a good little time. You know how it'll be. Bum 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 bum. I'm just kind of looking around real quick too, just to be sure we got everything set up like we need it to be. Yeah, no, I am. It's been a long day too. I'm not gonna lie. But you know what? That's okay. Yeah, so we have an actual better schedule for this week, chat, which is also nice. So we'll essentially be doing like one stream today, one stream Thursday, and then a long stream Saturday. And then I don't think we'll be live on Sunday, but that might change. A majority of us going live on Sundays will probably be once the Baldur's Gate campaign continues. I'm going to put on some background music so it's not just me talking at y'all with like nothing in the background because I think it was kind of weird. There we go. That should be a lot better. Perfect. Okay, let me see here. I think I've done everything that I needed to do before starting, so we'll just give it again until 7 p.m. and we'll start off with the book. Bam, 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 bam. Man. Make sure like I can actually get this pulled up to the right page too. There we go. Boop, 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 boop. Perfect. Okay, chat, we got it pulled up. I don't know what else we need to do. Let me see here. What are we going to get through today, chat? We'll absolutely 100% get through the introduction of the book. What's this? And then we might try to do the first couple of chapters. We'll kind of see how it goes, but what 100% the introduction and first chapter at least today, chat. Okay. Coolio. Let's see here. All right, so it is just hitting 7 p.m. I don't think we'll have this type of background music. Let me pull up like, I want to do like more atmospheric background music. No shot. I would no. We're not doing that one. Chat. Do I pull up the lullaby background music? No. No, I don't think we do background music, chat. I think we just read. I was gonna say we do background music, but you know, most of that background music is a bit strange. All right, let's see here. So, chat, let's go ahead and start with the introduction. For y'all that don't know, let me do the whole, you know what? Let's do the whole, like, YouTube spiel that people do. I don't think I'm posting this on YouTube, but... No, I can't do that. No. Hello, my name is Ava, and today we'll be reading through a book. Well, not all the way through, because gosh dang, that'd be a long stream. We will be starting our read of The House of Leaves. This is going to be a reoccurring stream event, type of stream. I don't know, shit. Essentially what this will be, chat, is we'll be reading through The House of Leaves together, and it's going to be a totally normal stream. Totally normal. But this will be like a fun little story time thing. I think I'll probably do it on Tuesdays, or I might switch it to Thursdays depending on how my weeks end up looking. But yeah, I am very excited. This book is a lot. I have the ability to pop up different pages onto the screen if I need to. Specifically to show off like, oh, fun little font things, or there's later on in the book some things that will definitely show on screen. There's some photos, some letters, and all of that. And letters, like not letters in the book. Of course, there's letters in the book. Letters as in letters written from someone to someone else inside the book. But yeah, also chat, look at how cute this is. It's the little pint glass of Fred the Frog. I love it so much. It's so good. But without further ado, chat, let's go ahead and start The House of Leaves. The introduction. I still get nightmares. In fact, I get them so often I should be used to them by now. I'm not. No one ever really gets used to nightmares. For a while, I tried every pill imaginable, anything to curb the fear. Excedrin PMs, melatonin, L-tryptophan, Valium, Vicodin, quite a few members of the barbital family. A pretty extensive list, frequently mixed, often matched, with shots of bourbon, a few lung-rasping bong hits, sometimes even the vaporous confidence trip of cocaine. None of it helped. I think it's pretty safe to assume there's no lab sophisticated enough to synthesize the kind of chemicals I need. Nobel Prize to the one that invents that puppy. I'm so tired. Sleep's been stalking me for too long to remember. Inevitable, I suppose. Sadly, though, I'm not looking forward to the prospect. I say sadly because there was a time I actually enjoyed sleeping. In fact, I slept all the time. That was before my friend Lude woke me up and yes, the name is Lude, L-U-D-E, which is so funny. My friend Lude woke me up at 3 a.m. and asked me to come over to his place. Who knows, if I hadn't heard the phone ring, would everything been different now? I think about that a lot. Actually, Lude had told me about an old man a month or so before that fateful evening. Is that right? Fate? It sure as hell wasn't full. Or was it exactly that? I've been in those throes of looking for an apartment after a little difficulty with the landlord, who woke up one morning convinced he was Charles de Gaulle. I was so stunned by this announcement that before I could think twice, I had already told him, in my humble estimation, he did not at all resemble an airport though the thought of a 757 landing on him was not at all disagreeable. I was promptly evicted. I could have put up a fight, but the place was a nut house anyways, and I was glad to leave. As it turned out, Charles de Gaulle burnt the place down to the ground a week later, told the police a 757 had crashed into it. During the following weeks, while I was couching it from Santa Monica to Silver Lake, looking for an apartment, Lude told me about this old guy who lived in his building. He had a first-floor apartment. Peering out over a wide, overgrown courtyard. Supposedly, the old man told Lude he thought he would be dying soon. I didn't think much of it, though it wasn't exactly the kind of thing... I lost my place, I'm so sorry. I didn't think much of it, though it wasn't exactly the kind of thing you forget either. At that time, I just figured Lude had been putting me on. He likes to exaggerate. Eventually, I found a studio in Hollywood and settled back into my mind-numbing routine as an apprentice at the tattoo shop. It was the end of '96. Nights were cold. I was getting over this woman named Clara English who had told me she wanted to date someone at the top of the food chain. So I demonstrated my unflagging devotion to her memory by immediately developing a heavy crush on the stripper who had thumper tattooed right beneath her G-string. Barely an inch from her shaved pussy, or as she liked to call it, the happiest place on earth. Suffice it to say, Lude and I spent the last hours of the year alone, scouting for new bars, new faces, driving recklessly through the canyons, doing our best to talk the high midnight heavens down with a whole lot of bullshit. We never did. Talk them down, I mean. Then the old man died. From what I can gather now, he was American. Though, as I would find out later, those who worked with him detected an accent, even if they could never say for certain where it came from. He called himself Zappano. It was the name he put down on his apartment lease and several other fragments I found. I never came across any sort of ID, whether a passport, license, or other official document, insinuating that yes, he was indeed an actual and accounted for person. Who knows where his family name really came from? Maybe it's authentic, maybe made up, maybe borrowed, a nom de plume, or my personal favorite, a nom de queer. Decor? I'm so bad at pronouncing these chat. As Lude told it, Zappano had lived in the building for many years. And though he mostly kept to himself, he never failed to appear every morning and evening to walk around the courtyard, a wild place with knee-high weeds and back then populated with over 8 stray cats. Apparently the cats liked the old man a lot, and though he offered no enticements, they would constantly rub up against his legs before darting back into the center of that dusty place. Anyway, Lude had been out very late with some woman he had met at the salon. It was just after 7 when he finally just stumbled back into the courtyard and, despite a severe hangover, immediately saw what was missing. Lude frequently came home early and always found the old man working his way around the perimeter of those weeds, occasionally resting on a sun-beaten bench before taking another round. A single mother who got up every morning at 6 also noticed Apano's absence. She went off to work, Lude went off to bed, but when dusk came and their old neighbor had still not appeared, both Lude and the single mother went to alert Flays, the resident building manager. Flays is part Hispanic, part Samoan. A bit of a giant, you might say, at 6'4", short, 6'4", 245 pounds, virtually no body fat. Vandals, junkies, you name it, they get near the building and Flays will lunge at them like a pit bull raised in a crack house. And don't think he believes size and strength are invincible. If the interloopers are carrying, he'll show them his own gun collection and he'll draw on them too, faster than Billy the Kid. But as soon as Lude voiced his suspicions about the old man, Pitbull and Billy the Kid went straight out the window. Flays suddenly couldn't find the keys. He started muttering about calling the owner of the building. After 20 minutes, Lude was so fed up with this hemming and hawing, he offered to handle the whole thing himself. Flays immediately found the keys, and with a big grin plopped them in Lude's outstretched hand. Flays told me later he'd never seen a dead body. There was no question there would be a body, and that didn't sit well with Flays. We knew what we'd find, he said. We knew that guy was dead. The police found Sampano, just like Lude found him, lying face down on the floor. The paramedics said there was nothing unusual, just the way it goes. 80-some years, an inevitable kerplunk. The system goes down, lights blink out, and there you have it, another dead body on the floor, surrounded by things that don't mean much to anyone. My God, except the one who can't take them along. Gosh, we're trying to enjoy the story. Still, this was way better than the prostitute the paramedics had seen earlier that day. She had been torn to pieces in a hotel room. Parts of her used to paint the walls and ceilings red. Compared to that, this was almost pleasant. The whole process took a while. Police coming and going, paramedics attending to the body for one thing, making sure the old man was really dead. Neighbors and eventually even Flays poking their heads into gawk, wondering or just grazing on a scene that might someday resemble their own end. When it was finally over, it was very late. Lude stood alone in the apartment, the corpse gone, officials gone, even Flays, the neighbors, and the other assorted snoops all gone. Not a soul in sight. 80 fucking years old. Alone in that piss hole, Lude had told me later. I don't want to end up like that. No wife, no kids, nobody at all. Not even one fucking friend. I must have laughed because Lude suddenly turned on me. Hey, Hoss, don't think young and squirting lots of comes... Hey, Hoss, don't think young and squirting lots of comes guarantees you shit. Look at yourself. No, that's how they wrote it. Yeah, it is, and I quote. Oh, I just lost my place. Never mind. Don't think young and squirting lots of comes guarantees you shit. Okay. Look at yourself. Working at a tattoo shop, falling for some stripper named Thumper. And he was right about one thing. Zampano had no family, no friends, hardly a penny to his name. The next day, the landlord posted a notice of abandonment, and a week later, after declaring that the contents of the apartment were worth less than $300, he called some charity to haul the stuff away. That night, Lude made his awful discovery. Right before the boys from Goodwill or wherever they came from, swept in with their gloves and hand trucks. When the phone rang, I was fast asleep. Anybody else I would have hung up on, but Lude's a good friend, a good enough friend. I actually dragged my ass out of bed at 3 in the morning and headed over to Franklin. He was waiting outside the gate. He was waiting outside the gate with a wicked gleam in his eyes. I should have turned around right then. I should have known something was up, at least since the consequences lingering in the air, in the hour, in Lude's stare, in all of it. And fuck, I must have been some kind of moron to have been so oblivious to all of those signs. The way Lude's keys rattled like bone chimes as he opened the main gate, the hinges suddenly shrieking as if we weren't entering a crowded building but some ancient moss-eaten crypt, or the way that we padded down the dank hallway, buried in shadows, lamps above hung with spangles of light that I swear now must have been the work of gray primitive spiders. Or probably, most important of all, the way Lude whispered when he told me things I couldn't have given a damn about then, but now, well, my nights would be a great deal shorter if I didn't have to remember them. Ever see yourself doing something in the past, and no matter how many times you remember it, you still want to scream stop, somehow redirect the action, reorder the present? I feel that way now. Watching myself tugged stupidly along by inertia, my own inquisitiveness, or whatever else, and it must have been something else, though what exactly I have no clue. Maybe nothing. Maybe nothing's all. A pretty meaningless combination of words. Nothing's all. But one I like just the same. It doesn't matter anyways. Whatever orders the path of all my yesterdays was strong enough that night to draw me past all of those sleepers kept safely at bay from the living, locked behind their sturdy doors until I stood at the end of unremarkable doors too, but still a door to the dead. Lude, of course, had been aware of the unsettling characteristics of our little journey to the back of the building. He had been recounting to me in many ways, dwelling upon what happened to the old man's death. Two things, Haas, Lude muttered as the gate glided open. Not that they make a difference, and as far as I can tell, he was right. They have very little to do with what follows. I include them only because they're part of the history surrounding Zampano's death. Hopefully, you'll be able to make sense of what I can represent, though still fail to understand. The first peculiar thing, Lou told me, leading the way around a short flight of stairs, were the cats. Apparently, in the months preceding the old man's death, the cats had begun to disappear. By the time he died, they were all gone. I saw one with its head ripped off, and another with its guts strewn all over the sidewalk. Mostly, though, they just vanished. The second peculiar thing you'll see for yourself, Lude said, lowering his voice even more as we slipped past the room of what looked suspiciously like a coven of musicians, all of them listening intently to headphones, passing around a spliff. Right next to the body, Lude continued, I found these gouges in the hardwood floor, a good 6 or 7 inches long. Very weird, but since the old man showed no physical signs of trauma, the cops let it go. He stopped when we had reached the door. Now I shuddered. Back then, I think I was somewhere else. More than likely daydreaming about Thumper. This will probably really wig you out. I don't care. But one night, I even rented Bambi and got a hard-on. That's how bad I had it for her. Thumper was something else, and she sure beat the hell out of Clara English. Perhaps. There's going to be a lot of those moments, Jonah. Perhaps at the moment, I wasn't even thinking about what the two would look like in a cat fight. Or I was even thinking about what the two would look like in a cat fight. One thing's for sure, though. When I heard Lude turning the bolt to open Zampano's door, I lost sight of those dreams. What hit me first was the smell. It wasn't a bad smell, just incredibly strong. And it wasn't one thing either. It was extremely layered, a patina upon progressive patina of odor, the actual source of which had long since evaporated. Back then, it had overwhelmed me, so much of it cloying, bitter, rotten, even mean. These days, I can no longer remember the smell, only my reaction to it. Still, if I had given it a name, I think I would have called it the scent of human history. a composite of sweat, urine, shit, blood, flesh, and semen. It's not Google, shut the fuck up. Flesh and semen, as well as joy, sorrow, jealousy, rage, vengeance, fear, love, hope, and a whole lot more. All of which probably sound pretty ridiculous, especially since the abilities of my nose are not really relevant here. What's important, though, is that the smell was complex for a reason. All the windows were nailed shut and sealed with caulking. The front entrance and the courtyard doors all storm-proofed. Hashtag ad gloss. It is. It is. Isn't it so good? Look at that. Like, look how fancy it looks. Why do you think I'm drinking Label Out? Okay. All the windows were nailed shut and sealed with caulking. The front entrance and the courtyard doors all storm-proofed. Even the vents were covered with duct tape. That said, this was a peculiar effort to eliminate any ventilation in the tiny apartment. Did not accumulate the bars on the windows or multiple locks on the doors. Corporate children take my money, mad. Zampano was not afraid of the outside world. As I've already pointed out, he walked around his courtyard and supposedly was even fearless enough to brave the LA public transport system for an occasional trip to the beach, an adventure even I'm afraid to make. My best guess now is that he sealed his apartment in an effort to retain the various emanations of things and himself. Where his things were concerned, they ran the spectrum: tattered furniture, unused candles, ancient shoes, these in particular looking sad and wounded, ceramic bowls as well as glass jars and small wood boxes full of rivets, rubber bands, seashells, matches, peanut shells, 1,000 different kinds of elaborately shaped and colored buttons. One ancient beer stein held nothing more than discarded perfume bottles. As I discovered, the refrigerator wasn't empty, but there wasn't any food in it either. Zampano had crammed it full of strange, pale books. Of course, all that's gone now. Long gone. That smell, too. I'm only left with a few scattered mental snapshots. A battered Zippo lighter with a patent pending printed on the bottom. The twining metal ridge looking a little like some tiny spiral staircase winding down into the bubbleless interior of a little socket. And for some reason, what I remember most of all, a very old tube of chapstick with an amber-like resin, hard and cracked. Which still isn't entirely accurate, though don't be misled into thinking I'm not trying to be accurate. There were, I admit, other things I recall about this place. They just don't seem relevant now. To my eye, it was just junk. Time having performed no economic alchemy there, which hardly mattered, as Lude hadn't called me over to root around in these particulars. And to use one of those big words I would eventually learn in the ensuing months, deranciated details of Zampano's life. Sure enough, just as my friend had described on the floor, in fact, practically dead center, were the 4 marks, all of them longer than a hand, jagged bits of wood clawed up by something neither of us cared to imagine. But that's not what Lude wanted me to see either. He was pointing at something else, which had hardly impressed me when I first glanced at its implacable shape. Truth be told, I'm still having a hard time taking my eyes off the scarred floor. I even reached out to touch the protruding splinters. What did I know then? What do I know now? At least some of the horror I took away at 4 a.m, you now have before you, waiting for a little like it waited for me that night, only without these few covering pages. As I discovered, there were reams and reams of it, endless snarls of wood, sometimes twisting into meaning, sometimes into nothing at all, frequently breaking apart, always branching off into other pieces. I'd come across later, on old napkins, the tattered edges of an envelope, once even on the back of a postage stamp, everything and anything but empty, each fragment completely covered with the creep of years, and years of ink pronouncements, layered, crossed out, amended, handwritten, typed, legible, illegible, impenetrable, lucid, torn, stained, scotch taped, some crisp and clean, others faded, burnt, or folded and refolded so many times that the creases have obliterated whole passages of God knows what, sense, truth, deceit, a legacy of prophecy or lunacy or nothing of the kind. And in the end, achieving, designating, describing, recreating, finding your own words. I have no more, or plenty more, but why, and all to tell what? Lude didn't need to have the answer, but somehow he knew I would. Maybe that's why we were friends, or maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he did need the answer, he just knew he wasn't the one who could find it. Maybe that's the real reason we were friends, but that's possibly wrong, too. Points at you? Wait, what do you mean points at me? Okay, chat, there's an ad break coming up soon, so we're going to take a quick pause here. Is this the House of Reeds reading? It is. It's the first part of it, of course. Chat, in case you don't know my opinion on ads, please go to the restroom, grab something to drink, grab something to eat. We'll take a quick break here. That's a good little paragraph to take a break on, and we will be back once the ads are done. If you want to vibe here, you can use a Twitch Prime or buy a sub, and you can see all the fancy little features we added, and just chitter-chatter for a bit. I need to find a bookmark, chat. Do I have a bookmark? Wait, I have the book. I could read along. We're on the introduction page, XVII. I can tell you the paragraph as well, whenever you get, if you want to. Do I have a bookmark, chat? Why are the ads not running? Bookmarks everywhere. I have none. I mean, technically I have bookmarks. They're like a ruler and use everything. Valid. I'm pretty sure I have like an actual bookmark here somewhere. Why are ads not running? I thought ads were supposed to be running. Damn it. That was the whole point of this break. The book is under shit. Maybe not. You can just listen. Why are the ads not running? There we go. The ads are running. Okay, chat, I'm looking for a bookmark. Now I have ads. Valid. If you guys don't have ads, hello. How's it going? Welcome to us vibing. Look how fancy this is. I love Nutty. Nutty is such a cool content creator, chat. He makes all of these stuff, like, makes or finds all of these different like streaming things, and they're amazing. He's the person I stole the receipt printer idea from. I got this from him now, where it's like the little ad bar and all of that. It's really cool. Give me 1 second. I'm gonna go pop over there real quick and see if I have a bookmark on the bookshelf. But I'm really not. Okay, there's one other place to check, chat. If not, I will literally just print one now. Chat, we found a bookmark. It's a old-fashioned Gaylord. It's a Gaylord Hotel key from the conference I went to. All right, let's go ahead and open up Maker World and print ourselves a bookmark, chat. I think the ad should be over. Give me just 10.2 seconds. I'm gonna print my. Actually, I'll do that afterwards. I don't wanna mess up the reading stuff. The Finster server is hosting an on contest, so I am so on. Oh hell yeah, kick ass slime. Alrighty, chat, back to it. One thing's for sure, even without touching it, both of us slowly begin to feel its heaviness, sense something horrifying in its propositions, its silence, its stillness. Even if it did seem to have been shoved almost carelessly to the side of the room, I think now if someone had said, "Be careful," we would have. I know a moment came when I felt certain its resolute blackness was capable of anything, maybe even slashing out, tearing up the floor, murdering Zampano, murdering us, maybe even murdering you, and then the moment passed. Wonder and the way the unimaginable is, sometimes suggested by the inanimate, suddenly faded. The thing became only a thing, so I took it home. My anxiety's through the roof with it. Oh, you'll do great, Slime. Like, yeah, don't worry at all. Back then, well, it's back then by now, you could have probably found me downing shots of whiskey at Le Plus Belle. Le Plus Belle? Yeah, Le Plus Belle. There you go. Annihilating my inner ear at Bar Deluxe, or dining at Jones's with some busty redhead I'd met at the House of Blues. Our conversations traversing wildly from clubs we knew well to clubs we'd like to know better. I sure as fuck wasn't bothered by the old man Z's words. All those signs I just now finished telling you about quickly vanished in the light of subsequent days, or had never been to begin with. Hair. There we go. Had never been there to begin with. Where were we? I'm so sorry. I got hair in my eyes, chat. I lost my place so hard. Give me 1 second, chat. Shh, ignore me. First curiosity, no, just finished telling you, existing only, had never been there to begin with, existing only in retrospect. At first, only curiosity drove me from one phrase to the next. Often a few days would pass before I pick up another mauled scrap, maybe even a week. But still I returned, for 10 minutes, maybe 20 minutes, grazing over the scenes, the names, small connections starting to form, minor patterns evolving in those spare slivers of time. I never read for more than an hour. Of course, curiosity killed the cat, and even if satisfaction supposedly brought it back, there's still that little problem with the man on the radio telling me more and more about some useless information. But I didn't care. I just turned the radio off. And then one evening, I looked over at the clock and discovered 7 hours had passed. Lude had called, but I hadn't noticed the phone ring. I was more than a little surprised when I found his message on my answering machine. That wasn't the last time I lost sense of time either. In fact, it began to happen more often, dozens of hours blinking by, lost in the twist of so many dangerous sentences. Slowly but surely, I grew more and more disoriented, increasingly more detached from the world, something sad and awful straining around the edges of my mouth, surfacing in my eyes. I stopped going out at night. Stopped going out. Nothing could distract me. I felt like I was losing control. Something terrible was going to happen. Eventually, something terrible did happen. No one could reach me. Not Thumper, not even Lid. I nailed my windows shut, threw out the closet and bathroom doors, stormproofed everything, and locks. Oh yes, I bought plenty of locks, chains too, and a dozen measuring tapes, nailing all those straight to the floor and the walls. They looked like suspiciously lost metal rods, or from a different angle, the fragile ribs of an alien spaceship. However, unlike Zappano, this wasn't about the smell. This was about the space. I wanted closed, inviolate, and most of all, immutable space. At least the measuring tapes should have helped. They didn't. Nothing did. I just fixed myself some tea on the hot plate here. My stomach's gone. I could barely keep even this honey milked up stuff down. But I need the warmth. I'm in a hotel now. My studio's history. A lot of these days is history. I haven't even washed the blood off yet. Not all of it's mine. Still caked around my fingers. The signs of it on my shirt. What happened here? I kept asking myself. What have I done? What would you have done? I went straight for the guns and I loaded them, and then I tried to decide what to do with them. The obvious thing was to shoot something. After all, that's what guns are designed to do, shoot something. But who or what? I didn't have a clue. There were these people in cars outside my hotel window, midnight people I didn't know, midnight cars I've never seen. I could have shot them. I could have shot them all. I threw up in my closet instead. Of course, I have only my immeasurable stupidity to blame for winding up here. The old man left plenty of clues and warnings. I was the fool to disregard them. Or was it the reverse? Did I secretly enjoy them? At least I should have had some fucking inkling what I was getting into when I read this note written just one day before he died. January 5th, 1997. Whoever finds and publishes this work shall be entitled to all proceeds. I ask only that my name takes its rightful place. Perhaps you will even prosper. If, however, you discover the readers are less sympathetic and choose to dismiss this enterprise out of hand, then I may suggest you drink plenty of wine and dance in the sheets of your wedding night. For whatever you know, for whether you know it or not, now you truly are prosperous. They say truth stands the test of time. I can think no greater comfort than knowing this document failed such a test. Which back then meant absolutely nothing to me. I sure as hell didn't pause to think some lousy words were going to land me in a shitty hotel room saturated with the stink of my own vomit. After all, I fast discovered Zampano's entire project is about a film which doesn't even exist. You can look, I have, but no matter how long you search, you'll never find the Davidson record. In theaters or video stores, furthermore, most of what's said by famous people have been made up. I tried collecting all of them. Those that took the time to respond told me they had never heard of Will Davidson, let alone Zampano. As for the books cited in the footnotes, a good portion of them are fictitious. For instance, Gavin Young's Shots in the Dark doesn't exist, nor does the works of Hubert Howey, Bancroft Volume XXVIII. On the other hand, virtually any dimwit can go to a library and find W.M. Lindsay or H.J. Thompson's Ancient Lore and Medieval Latin glossaries. There really was a rebellion on the 1973 Skylab mission, but Labelle Nicois et Le Bleu Chien is made up as is. I assume the bloody story of Quesada and Manlino. I hope I pronounced all that right. I probably didn't. And to this, my own mistakes, and there's no doubt I'm responsible for plenty, as well as the errors that Zampano made, which I failed to notice or correct. You'll see why there's suddenly a whole lot here not to take seriously. In retrospect, I also realized there probably are numerous people who would have been better qualified to handle this. Scholars with PhDs from Ivy League schools and minds greater than any Alexandrian library or WorldNet. Problem is, people were still in their universities, still on their net, and nowhere near Whitley when an old man without friends or family finally died. Zampano, I've come to recognize now, a very funny man, but his humor was that wry, desiccated kind of soldier's whisper. All the jokes subsurface, their laughter amounting to little more than a tick in the corner of the mouth, told as they wait together in their outpost, slowly realizing that help is not going to reach them in time, and come nightfall, no matter what they do or what they try to say, slaughter will overrun them. Carrion dawn for vultures. See, the irony is it makes no difference that the documentary at the heart of this book is fiction. Zampano knew from the get-go that what's real or what isn't real doesn't matter here. The consequences are the same. I can suddenly imagine the cracked voice I never heard, lips barely creased into a smile, eyes pinned on darkness, irony. Irony can never be more than our own personal Maginot line, the drawing of it, for the most part, purely arbitrary. It's not surprising that, when it came to undermining his own work, the old man was superbly capable. False quotes or invented sources, however, all pale in comparison to his biggest joke. Also, Slime, I don't know if you saw, but we have the sellout cup now. Zampano writes constantly about seeing what we see, how we see, and what in turn we can't see. Over and over again, in one form or another, he returns to the subject of light, space, shape, light, color, focus, tone, contrast, movement, rhythm, perspective, and composition. None of which is surprising, considering Zampano's piece centers on a documentary film called The Davidson Record, made by a Pulitzer Prize-winning photojournalist who must somehow capture the most difficult of all, the sight of darkness itself. Yeah, I was eyeing it down earlier. It's so good. It's honestly, I'm so surprised it printed so well on the glass. It is, the one downside of it is it's not dishwasher safe, which means hand wash. Very cringe. But other than that, it's great. It's actually solid. At first I figured Odd to say its least. At first, I figured Zampano was just a bleak old dude, the kind of guy who makes Itchy and Scratchy look like Calvin and Hobbes. His apartment, however, didn't come close to anything envisioned by Joel Peter Whitkin, or what's routinely revealed on the news. Sure, his place was eclectic, but hardly grotesque or even that far out of the ordinary, until, of course, you took a more careful look and realized, hey, why are all these candles unused? Why no clocks? None on the wall, not even in the corner of a dresser? And that's with these strange pale books, or the fact that there's hardly a goddamn bulb in this whole apartment, not even one in the refrigerator. Well, that, of course, was Zampano's greatest ironic gesture. Love of love, written by the broken-hearted. Love of life, written by the dead. All this language of light, film, and photography, and he hadn't seen a thing since the mid-50s. He was blind as a bat. About half the books he owned were in Braille. Lute and Flays both confirmed that over the years, the old guy had numerous readers visiting him during the day, some of these coming from community centers, the Braille Institute, or were just volunteers from USC, UCLA, or Santa Monica College. No one I ever spoke with, however, claimed to know him well, though more than a few are willing to offer me their opinions. One student believed he was certifiably mad. Another actress who had spent a summer reading to him thought Zampano was a romantic. She had come over one morning and found him in a terrible way. At first, I assumed he was drunk, but the old guy never drank. Not even a sip of wine. Didn't smoke either. He really lived in a very austere life. Anyway, he wasn't drunk, just really depressed. He started crying and telling me to leave. I fixed him some tea. Tears don't frighten me. Later, he told me it was heart trouble, just old heartache matters, he said. Whoever she was, she must have been really special. He never told me her name. As I eventually found out, Zampano had 7 names he occasionally mentioned. Beatrice, Gabrielle, Anne-Marie, Dominique, Elaine, Isabel, and Claudine. He apparently only brought them up when he was disconsolate. Disconsolate? Disconsolate. And for whatever reason, dragged it back into the dark and tangled time. At least there's something more realistic about 7 lovers than one mythological Helen. Even in his 80s, Zampano sought out the company of the opposite sex. Coincidence had no hand in arranging for all his readers to be female. As he openly admitted, there is no greater comfort in life than the soothing tones cradled in a woman's words. Except maybe his own words. Zampano was, in essence, to use a big word, a graphomaniac. He scribbled until he died, and while he came close a few times, he never finished anything, especially the work he would unabashedly describe as either his masterpiece or his precious darling. Even the day before he failed to appear in the dusty courtyard, he was dictating long, discursive passages, amending previously written pages, and reconstructing an entire chapter. His mind never ceased branching out of these new territories. The woman who saw him for the last time remarked, whatever it was, he could never quite address it himself. He could never try to address it in himself, prevented him from ever settling. Death finally saw to that. With a little luck, he'll dismiss this labor respect as Zampano had hoped, called it needlessly complicated, pointlessly obtuse, prolix your word, ridiculously conceived, and you'll believe all you've said, and then you'll put it aside, though ever hear just that one word, aside, makes me shudder. For what is ever really put aside, and you'll carry on, eat, drink, and be merry, and most of all, you'll sleep well. Then again, there's a good chance you won't. This much I'm certain of. It doesn't happen immediately. You'll finish, and that'll be that, until a moment will come, maybe in a month, maybe a year, maybe even several years. You'll be sick, or feeling troubled, or deeply in love, or quietly uncertain, or content for the first time in your life. It won't matter. Out of the blue, beyond any cause you can trace, you'll suddenly realize things are not how you perceive them to be at all. For some reason, you'll no longer be the person you believed you once were. You'll detect slow and subtle shifts going all around you, more importantly, shifts in you. Worse, you'll realize it's been shifting, like shimmer of sorts, a vast shimmer, only dark like a room. but you won't understand why or how. You'll have forgotten what granted you this awareness in the first place. Old shelters, television, magazines, movies won't protect you anymore. You might try scribbling in a journal, on a napkin, maybe even on the margins of this book. That's when you'll discover you no longer trust the very walls you always took for granted. Even the hallways you've walked 100 times will feel longer, much longer, and the shadows, any shadow at all, will suddenly seem deeper, much, much deeper. You might try, as I did, to find the sky so full of stairs it will blind you again. Only no sky can blind you now. Even with that iridescent magic up there, your eye will no longer linger on light. It will no longer trace constellations. You'll care only about the darkness, and you'll watch it for hours, for days, maybe even years, trying in vain to believe you're some kind of indispensable universe-appointed sentinel, as if you were looking you could actually keep it all at bay. It'll get so bad you'll be afraid to look away. You'll be afraid to sleep. Then, no matter where you are, in a crowded restaurant or some desolate street, or even in the comforts of your home, you'll watch yourself dismantle every assurance you've ever lived by. You'll stand aside as a great complexity intrudes, tearing apart piece by piece all your carefully conceived denials, whether deliberate or unconscious. And then, for better or worse, you'll turn, unable to resist. Though try to resist, you still will, fighting with everything you've got to not to face the thing you most dread, what is now, what will be, what has always come before, the creature you truly are, the creature we all are, buried in the nameless black of a name. And then the nightmares will begin. Johnny Trant, October 31st, 1998, Hollywood, California. And that leads us to the first chapter, the Novitzin record. Chapter 1. I am going to really quickly go grab some water, though, chat. So I will be right back. I recommend that you do the same.
Chat, whatever chat. Fuck, I don't know if you can hear me. I don't know if you can see me. Whatever you do not let Ava read this book. You will fucking drive them. Fuck, you can't see me. Look at me. Do not let Ava read this book. It will drive them insane. Look at me.
Not let them read this book. Alrighty, sorry about the delayed chat. I had to fill up the water, it's not a Brita filter, but the water filter thing. So that took a little bit longer. All right, back to it, shall we? Chapter 1. And it starts with a quote. Let me see if we can show this off. I saw a film today. Oh boy, the Beatles. Also, why are you talking about a body pillow? Damn. While enthusiasts and detractors will continue to empty entire dictionaries attempting to describe or deride its authenticity still remains. The words most likely to stir debate, in fact, the leading obsession to validate or invalidate the reels and tapes, invariably brings up a collateral and more general concern, whether or not, with the advent of digital technology, image has forsaken its once unimpeachable hold on the truth. Also, I'd like to add, so I will try to provide clarification. One really interesting part about this book, chat, is it has this font for when Johnny is talking or has written stuff, and then it has this font for when Zampano has written something. So the words we are reading now is Zampano's. I will try to iterate when we're reading Zampano's words or when we're reading Johnny's words. So we are reading Zampano's. For the most part, skeptics call the whole effort a hoax, but grudgingly admit the Novitzin record is a hoax of exceptional quality. Allegiance to tabloid UFO sightings. Clearly, it's not easy to appear credible when, after vouching for the film's verity, the discourse suddenly switches to why Elvis is still alive and probably wintering in the Florida Keys. One thing remains certain. Any controversy surrounding Billy Mayer's film on flying saucers has been supplanted by the house on Ash Tree Lane. Though many continue to devote substantial time and energy to the antimonies of fact or fiction, representation or artifice, document or prank, as of late, the more interesting material dwells exclusively on the interpretation of the events within the film. The direction seems more promising, even if the house itself, like Melville's behemoth, remains resistant to summation. Much like its subject, the Novitzin record itself is so uneasily contained, whether by category or lection, it finally cataloged as a gothic tale, contemporary urban folk myth, or merely a ghost story, as some have called it. The documentary will still, sooner or later, slip the limits of any one of those genres. Too many important things in the Novitzin records jut out past the borders, where one might expect horror, the supernatural, or traditional paroxysms of dread and fear. One discovers disturbing sadness, a sequence of radioactive isotopes, or even laughter over a Simpsons episode. In the 17th century, England's greatest topographer of worlds satanic and divine warned that hell was nothing less than regions of sorrow, doleful shades where peace and rest never dwell. Hope never comes. That comes to all. Thus echoing the words copied down by hell's famous tourist, Desani non foro. This is Latin, chat. The first bit, this is Johnny's footnote. The first bit comes from Milton's Paradise Lost, Book 1, lines 65 through 67. The second from Dante's Inferno, Canto 3, lines 7 to 9. In 1939, some guy named John D. Sinclair from the Oxford University Press translated the Italian as follows. Before me nothing was created, but eternal things and I endure eternally. Abandon every hope, ye that enter. Even today, many people still feel that, like the Novitzin record, in spite of all its existential refinements and contemporary allusions, continues to reflect those exact sentiments. In fact, a very few eager intellectuals have begun to treat the film as a warning in and of itself, perfectly suited for hanging whole above the gates of schools as architectonics, pompo, consequentialism, neoplasticism, phenomenology, information theory, Marxism, biosomatics, to say nothing of psychology, medicine, New Age spirituality, art, and even neo-minimalism. Will Navidson, however, remains stalwart in his insistence that his documentary should be taken literally. As he says himself, all this, don't take it as anything else but this. And if one day you find yourself passing by this house, don't stop, don't slow down, just keep going. There's nothing there, beware. Considering how the film ends, it's not surprising that a handful of people decided to heed his advice. The Navidson record did not appear as it does today. Nearly 7 years ago, what surfaced was the 5.5-minute hallway. A 5.5-minute optical illusion barely exceeding the abilities of the NYU Film School graduate. The problem, of course, was the accompanying statement that claimed all of it was true. It's one continuous shot. Navidson, whom we never actually see, momentarily focuses on a doorway on the north wall of his living room door, where he trips slightly in the flower bed, redirects the camera from the ground to the exterior white clapboard, then moves right, crawling back into the house through a second window, this time west of that door. We hear him grunt slightly as he knocks his head on the sill, eliciting light laughter from those in the room, presumably Karen, his brother Tom, and his friend Billy Reston. Though, like Navidson, they too never appear on camera, before finally returning to the starting point, thus completing the circling the doorway, so proving beyond a shadow of a doubt that insulation or siding is only possible thing this doorway could lead to. Which is when all laughter stops as Navidson's hand appears in frame and pulls open the door, revealing a narrow black hallway, at least 10 feet long, prompting Navidson to reinvestigate once again, leading us on another circumambulation of this strange passageway, climbing in and out of windows, pointing the camera to where... Whoop! All right, we'll take a break here real quick. There's an ad, so I did not realize that. That's a bit what we might call awkward. Actually, I'm going to do some stuff while the ad runs, chat. And pull up YouTube. Okay, ads should be over. I apologize about that. I didn't get to preempt that one. So that's a bit sad, but you know. Let me do one thing here, chat. There we go, chat. All I can think about is the Finster Comp. There's so many images in my head. I mean, I'm thinking about the book. It's a good book. But that's very valid. Yeah, that's the hard part with art, is like finding the thing that you want to draw, and there's so many ideas that float around in your head until you finally land on one. Okay, let me see. One continuous shot, right? We did that. To reinvestigate, once again leading us on another circumambulation of this strange passageway, climbing in and out of windows, pointing the camera to where the hallway should extend, but finding nothing more than his own backyard. No 10-foot protuberance, just rose bushes, a muddy dart gun, and the translucent summer air, and the essence, an exercise in disbelief, which, despite his best intentions, still takes Navidson back inside to the impossible hallway, until as the camera begins to move closer, threatening this time to enter it, Karen snaps, "Don't you dare go in there again, Navi." To which Tom adds, "Yeah, not a hot idea." Thus arresting Navidzin at the threshold, though he still put his hand inside, finally retracting it and expecting it. If by seeing alone there might be something to feel. The book is quite in my chaos. I love it, so good. Something something to feel. Alone there might be something more to feel. Reston wanting to know if in fact his friend does sense something different, and Navidzin providing the matter of a fact answer, which also serves as the conclusion, however abrupt, to the bizarre short. It's freezing in there. Dissemination of the 5.5-minute hallway seemed driven by curiosity alone. No one ever officially distributed it, and so never appeared in the film festivals or conventional film circles. Rather, VHS copies were passed around by hand, a series of progressively degrading dubs of the home video revealing a truly bizarre house with noticeably very few details about the homeowners, or for that matter, the author of this piece. Less than a year later, another short had surfaced. It was even more hotly sought after than the 5-minute hallway, which resulted in some fervent quests for Navidzin and the house itself, all of which for one reason or another failed. Unlike the first, this short was not a continuous shot, prompting many to speculate that the 8 minutes making up Exploration 4 were in fact bits of a much larger whole. The structure of Expedition 4 is highly discontinuous, jarring, and, as evidenced by many poor edits, even hurried. The first shot catches Navidzin mid-phrase. He is tired, depressed, and pale. Days, I think, and I don't know. Drink of something, unclear what. Actually, I'd like to burn it down. Can't think clearly enough to do it, though. Now, this. The next shot jumps to Karen and Tom arguing over whether or not to go in after him. At this point, it remains unclear who they are referring to. There are several more shots. Trees in winter, blood on the kitchen floor, one shot of a child, Daisy crying, then back to Navidzin. Nothing but this tape, which I've seen enough times. It's more like a memory than anything else, and still I don't know. Was he right or just out of his mind? Followed by 3 more shots, dark hallways, windowless rooms, stairs. Then a new voice. I'm lost. Out of food, low on water, no sense of direction, oh God. The speaker is bearded, broad-shouldered man with frantic eyes. He speaks rapidly and appears short of breath. Holloway Roberts, born in Menominee, Wisconsin, bachelor's from UMass. There's something here. It's following me. No, it's stalking me. I've been stalked by it for days, but for some reason it's not attacking me. It's waiting for something. I don't know what. Holloway Roberts, Menominee, Wisconsin. I am not alone here. I am not alone. Thus brings an end to this strange abstract, which, as of the release of the Navidzin record, was sparingly incomplete. Then, for 2 years, nothing. Few clues about who any of these people were, though eventually a number of photographers in the news community did recognize the author as none other than Will Navidzin, the prize-winning photojournalist who won the Pulitzer Prize for his picture of a dying girl in Sudan. Unfortunately, this discovery only generated a few months of heated speculation before, in the absence of press collaboration, the location of the house, or for that matter, any comment by Navidzin himself, interest died out. Most people just wrote it off as some kind of weird hoax or because of this unusual conceit and aberrant UFO sighting. Nevertheless, the deteriorating dubs did circulate, and in the house. Oops, I got struck to their chat. Did circulate. Okay, thank you, Thanos. Where was I? Did circulate it in the trendy academic circles. The debate began again. Was the subject a haunted house? What did Holloway mean by lost? How could anybody be lost in a house for days anyway? Furthermore, what was someone with Navidzin's credentials doing creating two strange shorts like these? And again, was this artifice or reality? Certainly, a good deal of debate was sustained for a bit by the old-fashioned cultural elitism. People talked about Navidzin's pieces because they were lucky enough to have seen them. Les Sinclair suspects a majority of professors, students, Soho artists, and avant-garde filmmakers who spoke or even wrote so knowingly about the tapes more likely had never even viewed one frame. They just weren't that many copies available. Well, the 5.5 minute hallway in exploration number 4 have been respectively called a teaser and a trailer. They are also in their own right peculiar cinematic moments. On a purely symbolic level, they afford a vast potential for examination. The compression of space, the power of imagination to decompress the space, the house as a trope for the unlimited and unknowable, etc., etc. On a strictly visceral level, they provided ample shocks and curiosities. However, the most unnerving aspect about both pieces is their ability to convince us that everything really happened, something of which can be attributed to the verifiable elements Holloway Roberts, Will Navidson et al., but most of which can be chalked up to the starkness of the production, the absence of makeup, some cases subtitles. Oh wait, no, I just skipped a whole line. My bad. The absence of makeup, expensive soundtracks or crane shots, except for framing, editing, and in some cases subtitles, there's virtually no room for creative intrusion. Who would have suspected that almost 3 years after the 5.5 minute hallway began appearing on VHS, Miramax would quietly release the Navidzin record in a limited series and almost immediately unsettle audiences everywhere. Since the opening 3 years ago last April in New York and Los Angeles, the Navidzin record has been screened nationwide, and while hardly a blockbuster, the film continues to generate revenues as well as interest. Film periodicals frequently publish reviews, critiques, and letters. Books devoted entirely to the Navidzin record now appear with some regularity. Numerous professors have made the Navidzin record required viewing for their seminars, while many universities already claim that dozens of students from a variety of departments have completed doctoral dissertations on the film. Comments and references frequently appear in Harper's, The New Yorker, Esquire, American Heritage, Vanity Fair, Spin, as well as on late-night television. Interest abroad is equally intense. Japan, France, Norway have all responded with awards, but to this day, the spectral Navidzin has yet to appear, let alone accept any of these. Even the Garlios Weinstein brothers remain unusually reticent about the film and its creator. Interview magazine quoted Harvey Weinstein as saying, "It is what it is. The Navidzin record now stands as a part of this country's cultural experience, and yet in spite of the fact that hundreds of thousands of people have seen the film, it continues to remain an enigma. Some insist that it must be true. Others believe it's a trick on par with the Orson Welles radio romp, The War of the Worlds. Others could care less, admitting that either way, the Navidzin record is a pretty good tale. Still, many more have never even heard of it. These days, with the unlikely prospect of any sort of post-release resolution or revelation, Navidzin's film seems destined to achieve, at most, cult-like status. Good storytelling alone will guarantee a healthy sliver of popularity in the years to come, but inherent strangeness will permanently bar it from any mainstream interest." And that is the end of chapter 1. Let me see how long chapter 2 is, Chad. No, it's not too long. We probably get through chapter 2 at minimum. We're gonna drink some more water though. It is what it is indeed, Slime. Right, give me 1 second. I'm gonna stretch. Perfect. Yeah, this book is so interesting to me. Honestly, it is one of my, I think, like, favorite uses of narrative storytelling. It's just so good. Give me just 1 second here, chat. We're just checking on a few things. Apologies. I'm pulling some stuff up here and there. Perfect. Okay. Cool, cool, cool. Alrighty, let's go ahead and get into chapter 2, shall we? Chapter 2, starting with the quote: "The labors of men of genius, however erroneously directed, scarcely ever fail in ultimately turning to the solid advantage of mankind." Mary Shelley. The Da Vinci Record actually, and this is Zappano writing, by the way. The Da Vinci Record actually contains 2 films. The one Da Vinci made, which everyone remembers, and the one he set out to make, which very few people ever detect. While easily overshadowed by the finished film, the filmmaker's original intentions provided an early context in which to view the peculiar properties of the house later on. In many ways, the opening of the Da Vinci Record, shot back in April of 1990, remains one of the more disturbing sequences because it so effectively denies itself even the slightest premonition what will soon take place on Ash Tree Lane. Not once during the initial minutes does Navidson indicate he knows anything about the impending nightmare he and his entire family are about to face. He is wholly innocent, and the nature of the house, at least for a while, lies beyond his imagination, let alone his suspicions. Of course, not everyone remains in accordance with this assessment. Dr. Isaiah Rosen believes Navidson's a fraud from frame one, and his early posturing puts his entire work at risk. Rosen assumes that the beginning is just a case of bad acting, performed by a man who's already envisioned the rest of the film. Consequently, Rosen seriously undervalues the importance of Navidson's initial intentions. All too often, major discoveries are the unintended outcome of experiments or explorations aimed at achieving entirely different results in Navidson's In Navidson's case, it's impossible to disregard his primary goal, especially since it served as a progenitor of, or at the very least, the near origin to all that followed. Rosen's presumptions lead him to dismiss the cause for the result, thereby losing sight of the complex and rewarding relationship which exists between the two. It's funny, Navidson tells us at the outset. I just want to create a record of how Karen and I bought a small house in the country and moved into it with our children. See how everything turns out. No gunfires, famines, or flies. Just toothpaste, gardening, and people stuff. Which is how I got the Guggenheim Fellowship and the NEA Media Arts Grant. Maybe because of my past, they're expecting something different, but I just thought it would be nice to see how people move into a place and start to inhabit it. Settle in, maybe put down roots, interact, hopefully understand each other a little better. Personally, I just want to create a cozy little outpost for me and my family, a place to drink lemonade on the porch and watch the sun set. Which is almost literally how the Navidson Records begins, with William Navidson relaxing on the porch of his small, old-style heritage house, enjoying a glass of lemonade, watching the sun turn the first few minutes of daytime into gold. Despite Rosen's claim, nothing about him seems particularly devious or false, nor does he appear to be acting. In fact, he is a disarmingly pleasant man, lean, attractive, slowly edging through his 40s, determined once and for all to stay in and explore the quieter side of life. At least initially he succeeds, providing us with the pristine glimpses of the Virginia countryside, the rural neighborhood, purple hills born on the fringe of night, before moving past these establishing shots and focusing more closely on the process of moving into the house itself. unrolling pale blue oriental rugs, arranging and rearranging furniture, unpacking crates, replacing light bulbs, and hanging pictures, including one of his own prize-winning photographs. In this way, Navidson not only reveals how each room is occupied, but how everyone has helped apply his or her own personal texture. At one point, Navidson takes a break to interview his 2 children. These shots are so impeccably composed, son and daughter bathed in sunlight, their warm-lit faces framed against a cool backdrop of green lawn and trees. His 5-year-old daughter, Daisy, approves their new house. It's been nice here, she giggles, though she is not too shy to point out the absence of stores like Bloomingdale's. Chad, who is 3 years older than Daisy, is a little more self-conscious, even serious. Too often his response has been misread by those aware of the film's ending. It's important to realize, however, that at this point in time, Chad had no sense what the future holds. He is merely expressing anxieties natural for a boy his age who has just been uprooted from his home in the city and deposited in a vastly different environment. As he tells his father, what he misses most is the sound of traffic. It seems the noise made by trucks and taxi cabs created a kind of evening lullaby. Now he finds it's difficult to fall asleep in the quiet. What about the sound of crickets, Navidson said. Chad shakes his head. It's not the same. I don't know. Sometimes it's just silent. No sound at all. Does that scare you? Chad nods. Why? His father asks. It's like something's waiting. What? Chad shrugs. I don't know, Daddy. I just like the sound of traffic. Of course, Navidson's pastoral take on his family's move hardly reflects the far more complicated and significant impetus behind his project, namely his founding relationship with longtime companion Carrion Green. While both have been perfectly content not to marry, Navidson's constant assignments abroad have led to an increased alienation and untold personal difficulties. After nearly 11 years of constant departures and brief returns, Karen has made it clear that Navidson must either give up his professional habits or lose his family. Ultimately, unable to make the choice, he compromised by turning reconciliation into a subject for documentation. None of this, however, is immediately apparent. In fact, it requires some willful amnesia of the more compelling sequences ahead if we are to detect the subtle valences operating between Will and Karen, or as Donna York phrased it, the way they talk to each other, the way they look at each other, and of course the way they don't. Navidson, we learned, began his project by mounting a number of high 8s around the house and equipped them with motion detectors to turn them on and off whenever someone enters or leaves the room. With the exception of the 3 bathrooms, there are cameras in every corner of the house. Navidson also keeps 2 16mm air reflexes and his usual battery of 35mm cameras. Nevertheless, as everyone knows, Navidson's project is pretty crude. Nothing, for instance, like the constant eye of CCTV systems routinely installed in local banks or lavish equipment and multiple cameras operators required on MTV's Real World. The whole effort would seem very home movie-ish at best, were it not for the fact that Navidson is an extremely gifted photographer who understands how 1/6 of a second can yield an image worth more than 24 hours of continuous footage. He is not interested in showing all coverage or attempting to capture some kind of Catholic or otherwise mythical view. Instead, he hunts for moments, pearls of the particular, an unexpected phone call, a burst of laughter, or some snippet of conversation that might elicit from us an emotional spark, and perhaps even a bit of human understanding. More often than not, the near wordless fragments Navidson selects reveal what explication could only approximate. 2 such instances seem extremely sublime, and because they are so short and easy to miss, it is worth reiterating their content here. In the first one, we see Navidson climbing to the top of the stairs with a crate full of Karen's things. Their bedroom is still cluttered with lamps in bubble wrap and assorted unpacked suitcases and garbage bags full of clothes. Nothing hangs on the walls. Their bed is not made. Navidzin finds some room on top of a bureau to set down his load. He is about to leave when the invisible impulse stops him. He takes Karen's jewelry box out of the crate, lifts the hard-covered horn lid, and removes the inner tray. Unfortunately, whatever he sees is invisible to the camera. When Karen walks in carrying a basket stuffed with bed sheets and pillowcases, Navidzin has already turned his attention to an old hairbrush lying next to some perfume bottles. "What are you doing?" she asks. "This is nice," he says, removing a big clump of her blonde hair from the tines and tossing it into the basket. "Give me that," Karen demands. "Just you watch. One day I'll go bald and then you'll be sorry you threw it away." "No," Navidzin replies with a grin. It is unnecessary to dwell here on the multiple ways in which these few seconds demonstrate how much Navidzin values Karen, except to highlight how, despite his sarcasm and apparent disregard for her things, the scene itself represents the exact opposite. Using image and exquisitely controlled edits, Navidzin has, in effect, preserved her hair, called into question his own behavior, and perhaps in some ways contradicted his own closing remark, which, as Samuel T. Glade has pointed out, could refer to either watch, bald, or sorry, or all three. Even better, Navidzin has permitted the action and subtlety of the composition to represent the profound sentiment at work without the molestations of some ill-conceived voiceover or manipulative soundtrack. In keeping with this approach, the second moment also does without explanations or disingenuous musical cues. Navidzin simply concentrates on Karen Green. Once a model within the Ford agency in New York, she had since put behind her life of Milan fashion shoots and Venetian masques in order to raise her two children. Considering how beautiful she appears on the dreadful High 8 tapes, it's hardly surprising editors frequently relied on slides of her pouty lips, high cheekbones, and hazel eyes to sell magazines. Early on, Navidzin gives Karen a High 8, which he asks her to treat like a journal. Her video entries, which Navidzin promised only to review after the film was shot, and then only if she agreed, revealed a 37-year-old woman who worries about leaving the city, growing old, keeping trim, and staying happy. Nevertheless, despite their purely confessional content, it is not a journal entry, but rather an unguarded moment captured on one of the house's High 8s that demonstrates Karen's almost bewildering dependence on Navidzin. Karen sits with Chad and Daisy in the living room. The children are amidst candle-making project, which involves several empty egg cartons, a dozen long links of wick, a bucket of Paris, and a jar of crystal wax. Using a pair of red-handled scissors, Daisy cuts the wicks down 3 inches and then presses each of them into the egg cup, which Chad in turn fills with a layer of plaster followed by a layer of the tiny wax beads. The result is some candle with plenty of goop to go around, most of it ending up on the children's hands. Karen helps brush the hair out of her daughter's eyes, lest she tries to do it herself and end up smearing plaster all over her face. And yet, even though Karen keeps Chad from overfilling the molds or Daisy from hurting herself with scissors, she still cannot resist looking out the window every couple of minutes, the sound of a passing truck causing her to glance away, even if there was no sound, though clearly a matter of opinion. Karen's gaze seems just as lost as it is surfeit with love and longing. The reasons are in part answered when at last Navidzin's car pulls into the driveway. Karen hardly attempts to contain her relief. She immediately jumps up from the mini candle factory and dashes from the room. Seconds later, no doubt thinking better of herself, she returns. "Daisy, hold off using the scissors until I get back." "Mommy," Daisy shrills. "You heard what I said. Chad, keep a close eye on your sister." "Daisy, Mommy also wants you to look after your brother." This seems to appease the little girl, and she actually settles down, smugly eyeing Chad as she continues to snip wicks. Strangely enough, by the time Karen reaches Navidzin in the foyer, indifference is highly instructive. In the peculiar contradiction that serves as connective tissue in so many relationships, it is possible to see that she loves Navidson almost as much as she has no room for him. Hey, and the water heater is on the fridge, she manages to say. What happened? She accepts his brief kiss. I guess last night. And here we go into an extremely long footnote, chat, that starts here and continues on to this next page. This will be written from Johnny's perspective. So the person who found the book and wrote the foreword that we read. I'm going to give it a little bit, though, because I'm going to get some water real quick, like just a drink of water. I'm going to pause for a few moments because an ad's about to start in 40 seconds, so it seems, pointless to continue reading if it's only going to, in 30 seconds, get cut off immediately. So yeah, I hope y'all are enjoying this so far. I have no clue, I have no clue if y'all are or are not, but I hope you guys are. So hey, I wait while we go through an ad break. I need to drink some water. I've been talking a lot today. This is like a really nice way for me to read through The House of Leaves. A, because I have wanted to for a while, but got a little bit into it and then had to stop when I was trying to get ready to move. And B is also just it's fun. It's a nice chill stream that I don't have to put as much effort into, which is kind of nice depending on the week. So it makes for a good series of stuff, I think. Let's see, how is everyone? Oh, there's a bunch of people online right now doing stuff fancy. Oh, Thanos has sent a file. Thank you, Thanos. Are ads running? I can't tell. I don't think they are. That's so awkward, chat. I am going to really quickly turn off the overhead fan because it's getting cold in here. Oh, ad start in 4, 3, 2, 1. Perfect. Alrighty. I think it's really cool, that little ad thing. How's y'all's day been, though? Hopefully everyone's having a good day thus far, is enjoying it, is getting to relax a little bit later on. I gotta do some work after this, sadly, but it is what it is. What do you expect, right? I do love this glass. It's so pretty. I mean, I'm biased because I made the glass, chat, and it's my own design, but I think it's hilarious. I think it would be great for when we do actual drinking streams and all of that too, where you have that a drink in that glass because it's literally the alcohol glass. Alrighty, chat. It looks like the ad break is over, so let's go ahead and continue. Let me see if I can find where we were. Oh, right. We just got into the footnote, chat. As a reminder, this footnote is written by Johnny. I got up this morning to take a shower, and guess what? No fucking hot water. A pretty evil discovery, especially when you're depending on that watery wake-up call. Me being massively dehydrated from a long night, drunk, my road dog Lude and I winged our way out onto last night. As I'm remembering it now, we somehow ended up at this joint on Pico and soon thereafter found ourselves in a conversation with some girls wearing black cowboy hats, supposedly lost in their own private blend of brain-hatching euphoria, thank you herbal ecstasy, prompting us to put a little verbal ecstasy on them, which would, as it turned out, ultimately lead to them giggling into the night. Saying that I'm drinking tonight, valid. Cheers. This is water. I've forgotten now what we did exactly to get the whole thing rolling. I think Lude started giving one of them a trim, whipping out his scissors, which he always has on hand. Like old gunslingers, I guess, always on their, always doing a great fucking job too. Oh wait, no wait, sorry. His old scissors, as he always had on hand, like old gunslingers, I guess, always had on hand their Colts. There he goes, snipping long locks and bangs, doing a great fucking job too. He's a pro, and all of it in the dark too, on a bar stool, surrounded by dozens of who knows who, fingers and steel clicking away, tiny bits of hair splitting off into the surrounding turmoil. The girls all nervous until they see he really is the shit, and they immediately chirping me next, and do me, which is too easy to remark on. So instead, Lude and I remark upon something else, which this time around is all about some insane adventure I supposedly had when I was a pit boxer. Mind you, I'd never heard that term before, nor had Lude. Lude had just made it up, and I went with it. Oh, come on. They don't want to hear about that, I said, with about as much reluctance as I could reasonably feign. No, Haas, you're wrong. You must, Lude insisted. Very well, I said, starting to recall for everyone how at the lonely age of 19 I had climbed off the barge in Galveston. Actually, I escaped, I improvised. See, I had still owed my crazy Russian captain $1,000 for a wager I'd lost in Singapore. He wanted to murder me, so I practically had to run the whole way to Houston. Don't forget to tell him about the birds, Lude winked. He was just throwing shit at me, something he loved doing, keeping me on my toes. Sure, I mumbled, stretching for an explanation. This barge I'd been on was loaded with dates and pounds of hash and an incredible number of exotic birds, all of it, of course, illegal to transport. But what did I know? I didn't exactly affect me, and anyways, I wasn't sticking around, so I reached Houston, and the first thing that happens, some twerp comes up to me and tries to rob me. Lude frowned. He clearly wasn't pleased with what I had just done to his birds. I ignored him and continued. This guy just walked up straight up to me and told me to give him all my money. I didn't have a dime on me, but it wasn't like this Weasley son of a bitch had a weapon or anything, so I slugged him. Down he went, but not for long. A few seconds later, he pops up again, and you know what? He's smiling. And then this other guy joins him, much bigger, and he's smiling too and shaking my hand, congratulating me. They've been searching all day for a pit boxer. Pay was $200 a night, and apparently I just made the grade. This Weasley son of a bitch was the head interviewer. His partner refused to refer to him as the punching bag. By now the girls were crowding around me and Lude, sucking down more drinks and all that, falling into the rhythm of the story. Carefully, I led them through the first night, describing the ring with its dirt floor surrounded by hordes of folks come to bet a few dollars and watch guys get hurt themselves, hurt someone else. Gloves were not optional in this kind of fight. Were not an option in this kind of fighting. Miraculously, I made it through alive. I actually won my first two battles. A couple bruises, cut cheek, but I walked away with $200 and punching bag forked in for ribs and beer, and even let me crash on his couch. Not bad. So I continued, in fact, for the whole month. I did this twice a week. See the scar on his eyebrow there? Lude points, giving the girls one of these all-knowing, completely over-the-top nods. Is that how you broke your front tooth too? A girl said with a ruby pin in her cowboy hat. A girl with a ruby pin in her cowboy hat blurted out. Though, as she said it, I could see she felt bad for mentioning my busted incisor. I'm getting to that, I said with a smile. Why not work the tooth in there too, I thought. After 3-4 weeks, I continued. I had enough to pay back the captain and even keep a little bit for myself. I was pretty tired of the whole damn thing anyways. The fights were bad enough, and incidentally, I'd won every one. I added. Lude scoffed. But having to be wary all the time around the likes of Punching Bag and his partner, that was by far the worst aspect. Also, as it turned out, the place I was staying in was a whorehouse, full of these sad girls who, between their own senseless rounds, would talk about the simplest, most inconsequential things. I liked it better out on the barge, even with the captain in his murdering moods. Well, My last night, the twerp pulls me aside and I suggest I bet dough on myself. I tell him I don't want to because I could lose. You fucking stupid kid, he spits at me. You've won every fight so far. Yeah, I say so. So, well, figure it out. It's not because you're any good. They've all been fixed. I find some lump, pay him, and $50 to take a swing and dive. We're making a killing on these bets. You won last week. You won 3 weeks before. You'll win tonight. I'm just trying to help you out here. So, being the stupid kid I was, I bet all the money I had on me, walked into the ring, and who do you think was waiting for me? I gave everyone a chance to come up with their own answer while I drained my glass of beer, but no one had a clue who I was about to fight. Even Lude was a step behind. Of course, that depends on how you look at it. He was also fondling the ass of a girl with a Turlamine in her cowboy hat while she was in turn, or so it appeared to me, caressing the insides of his thighs. In the middle of all these Houston losers, all of them screaming odds, screaming money, licking their gums for blood, stood Punching Bag, fists all taped up, and not even the flicker of a smile or the slightest bit of recognition in his eyes. Boy, let me tell you what. He turned out to be a mean-spirited, remorseless SOB. The first round, he knocked me down twice. The second round, I almost didn't get up. All month long, he and his partner have been boosting the numbers on me. So that when Punching Bag, and at this point he was the long shot, slaughtered me, they'd walk away with a small fortune or run. Me, though, a dumb 19-year-old who wandered into Galveston after 3 months at sea, I was going to lose my money and wind up in the hospital, maybe even worse. Since the fights were just 3 rounds long, I had only one more left to do something. His partner threw a bucket of ice water in my face and told me to crawl out of there and get it over with. As I wobbled to my feet, I shook my head and saying out loud enough so he could hear me, but not loud enough so he'd think I was selling something, I said that it was too bad because I had been planning to use all that money to buy a shipment of some stuff worth at least 1,000% on the street. Well, the last round I should say, Punching Bag broke my tooth. I was out. They had originally planned to ditch me, but my little gambit had worked. After what the partner had heard me say, which I'm sure he shared as soon as he could with Punching Bag, they dragged me along, dumped whiskey into me in their truck, and then started grilling me about the stuff I'd been babbling about, trying to find out what was worth 1,000%. Now, I was in a bad way, more than a little afraid that they'd do something really evil if they found out I'd been bullshitting them. Still, I figured I'd stay in Houston. I'd probably be lynched by the bettors who, by now, had figured out something was sour, which could only mean one thing to them. All explanations to the grave. Punching Bag and his partner and me were to blame. I had to think fast, and besides, I still wanted my money back, so. By now, even Lude was hooked. The girls all engrossed and smiling and still shimmying closer, as if by maybe touching me, they could find out for sure if I was real. Lude knew it was pure crap, but he had no clue where I was heading. To tell you the truth, neither did I, so I gave it my best shot. I pointed them to the barge. I hadn't figured out what I'd do once we got there, but I knew the ship was leaving with the tide early next morning, so we had to hurry. Luckily, we arrived in time, and I immediately went off to find the captain, who, as soon as he saw me, grabbed me by the throat. Somehow, between gasps, I succeeded in telling him about Punching Bag and his partner and their money, all their money, which included my money, most of which, in essence, was the captain's money. That got the bastard listening. A few minutes later, he sauntered over with the duo, poured them coffee mugs full of vodka, and in an incomprehensible accent began going on about pure New Guinean value. Or New Guinea value. New Guinea? Yeah, that's right. Value. Punching Bag had no idea what this idiot was talking about. Neither did I, for the matter. But an hour and 2 bottles of vodka later, he came to the conclusion that the captain must have been talking about drugs. After all, the captain kept mentioning Euphoria, Spanish explorers, and paradise, even though he refused to show Punching Bag the tiniest bit of anything tangible value, vaguely referring to custom officials and constant threat of confiscation and jail. Now, here is the clincher. While he was babbling on, this van drives up, and a guy no one has ever seen or ever will see again gets out, gives the captain $1,000, takes one crate, and then drives off. Just like that. Oh, sorry, I got my place lost chat. Just like that. And boy, does that do it. Without even examining what he's buying, punching bag hands over 5 Gs. The captain, keeping his word, immediately loads 5 crates into the back punching bag's truck. I'm sure the twerp would expect them right on the spot, except suddenly, in the distance, we all start hearing police sirens or harbor patrol sirens or some shit. They weren't after us, but punching bag and his partner still got spooked and took off fast as they could. Even after we got out to sea, the captain was still laughing. I wasn't, though. The bastard wouldn't give me any of my money. By his way of thinking and explaining to me in that incomprehensible accent of his, I owed him for saving my life, not to mention transporting my sorry ass all the way to Florida, where I did end up going, nearly dying in the cold water place called the Devil's Ear, which is altogether a different story. Still, it wasn't so bad, especially when I think now and then about punching bag and his partner. I mean, I wonder what they did, what they said when they finally tore open those crates and discovered all those fucking birds. Over 50 birds of paradise. A few months later, I did read somewhere about how the Houston police busted 2 felons trying to unload a bunch of exotic birds at a zoo. Which is pretty much how the story ended, or at least the story I told last night. Maybe not verbatim, but close. Unfortunately, nothing happened with the girls. They just ran off, giggling into the night. No digits, no dates, not even their names, leaving me feeling dumb and sad, a bit like a broken thermos. Fine on the outside, but on the inside, nothing but busted glass. And why I'm going on about any of this right now is beyond me. I've never seen a bird of paradise, and I'm sure as hell I've never seen them boxed or been on a barge. In fact, just looking at this story makes me feel like a little queasy all of a sudden. I mean, I know it's how fake it is. It just sort of doesn't sit right with me. It's like there's something else, something behind it all, a greater story still looming in the twilight, which for some reason I'm unable to see. Anyway, I didn't mean to wander off like this. I was telling you about the shower, and that's what I wanted to deal with. As you probably know, finding out there's no more warm water is a particularly unpleasant discovery, simply because it's not something you figure out immediately. You have to let the water run a while, and even though it remains icily, part of you still believes that part of you still refuses to believe it won't change, especially if you wait a little longer or open up the valve a little more. So wait, but no matter how many minutes run by, you still see no steam, still feel no heat. Maybe a cold shower would have been good for me. The thought crossed my mind, but I was already too freezing to try, and even too freezing to try for even a quick one. I don't even remember why I was freezing. It was pretty warm in my place, warmer outside, and not even my big brown corduroy coat helped. Later, I spotted some workers in the back tackling the water heater, one of them snorting on a dusty handkerchief, covered in tats. Manson, crucified on his back, told me he'd have it fixed by this evening. It's not. Now I'm sure you're wondering something. Is it just a coincidence that the cold water predicament of mine also appears in this chapter? Not only Zampano only wrote heater, the word water back there, I added that. Now that's an admission, eh? Hey, not fair. You cry. Hey, fuck you, I say. Wow, am I mad right now? Clearly a nerve's been hit somewhere, but I don't know how, why, or by what. I don't believe it's because of some crummy made-up story or a lousy water heater. Can't follow the feeling. If only any of it were true. I mean, we'd all be so lucky to wind up punching bag and still find our crate full of birds of paradise. No luck with this crate. Let the cold water run. It's gotta warm up eventually, right? This is back to Zampano. What both of these moments revealed is how much Will and Karen need each other, and yet how difficult they find handling and communicating those feelings. Unfortunately, critics have been less than sympathetic following the release of the Novitzin record. Neither Karen nor Novitzin's reputation escaped unscathed. Karen, in particular, was decimated by a vertupive stream of accusations from the tabloids. Reputable reviewers and an estranged sister, Leslie Buckman, blows high the roof beams when she calls. Karen Green, a cold bitch, plain and simple. A high fashion model, not much smarter than a radiator, who grew up thinking life revolved around a club owner, cocaine, and credit card limits. Watching her burble about her weight, her children, or how much she needs Novitzin made me want to retch. How can she say she loves a man she's incapable of anything, even remotely resembling commitment? Did I say she was a cold bitch? She's also a slut. Buckman is not alone in her opinion. Dale Cordingen has also pointed out that Karen was anything but a lovely housewife. Karen hardly gave up the presumptuous behavior that marked her early 20s. She only became more discreet. In retrospect, the rabid speculation over Karen's infidelity seems driven by a principally sexist culture, especially since so little attention was paid to Novitzin's role in their relationship. As David Little once exclaimed, "If he has horns, who's to say he doesn't have hooves?" Fortunately, unlike the biased treatment offered by the media, Novitzin does not hesitate to constantly include in his film evidence his own feelings. In fact, as of late, many have called into question the accuracy of this self-portrait, observing that Novitzin may have gone a little too far out of his way to cast himself in a less than favorable light. Not only does Novitzin reveal through Karen, Chad, and Daisy how he spent the last decade perfecting a career in distance where taking off at any moment's notice to shoot Alaskan fishing boats was something his family just had to accept, and even if that 3-day trip slowly evolved into weeks and even months, he also, by the way of film, admits to carrying around his own alienating and intensely private obsessions. Not only does Novitzin... that was the same one. He mentioned Delisle again. She says in an extremely clipped tone, "I've warned him if he's not going to tell me who she is, he'd better damn not bring her up. Part of this move south was supposed to be about putting the past and all that behind us." He's been pretty good, I guess. Can't control his dream. Last night, I wasn't sleeping very well. It was cold. It's the middle of May, but I feel like I was lying in a freezer. I got up to get a blanket, and when I came back, he was talking to his sleep. Delisle, just like that, out of the blue, and I'm certain because he said her name twice, almost shouted it. As it turns out, Karen was not the only one who was kept in the dark about Delisle. Even friends and fellow photojournalists who had heard Novitzin's name used before never received any sort of explanation. No one had any idea who she was or why it was she haunted his thoughts and conversations like some albatross. That said, while the first sequence certainly hints a number of underlying tensions in the Novitzin/Green family, all brought into relief by this chapter, it is crucial not to lose sight of the prevailing bliss still evoked in those opening minutes. After a couple of days, Chad no longer had trouble sleeping. After a couple of days, Daisy's nipped finger heals, the heater is easily repaired. Even both parents enjoy a private moment where their hands kind of playfully unlock and interlock. Will finally putting his arm around Karen as she lets out a heart-stirring sigh, resting her head on his shoulder. In fact, it's rare to behold such a radiant optimism in anything these days, let alone in films. Each frame so replete with promise and hope, Novitzin clearly cherishes these bucolic, nearly idyllic impressions of a new world. Of course, nostalgia's role in shaping the final cut might not be forgotten, especially since within a year, these pieces were all Novitzin had left. Karen and the children, a mere blur racing down the staircase, the pointillism of their pets' paws prints caught on the dew-covered lawn of the house itself. An indifferent shimmer stirring quietly on the corner of Sikoth and Ash Tree Lane bathed in afternoon light. I think that is where we're going to leave off today, chat. So that is the first 2 chapters, as well as the introduction of the House of Leaves read. If you enjoyed this, feel free to check us out on like every other social platform that we have. We will be doing a lot more reading as it comes up soon. We'll basically be working through the entirety of the book. For now, for context, this is how much we got through. This is how much we have left. So we still got a while. But if you enjoyed today, like I said, please consider using a follow if you don't want to get ads next time and just vibe with us during the breaks. You can use a Twitch Prime, or which is free with your Amazon Prime account, or buy a sub. And you don't have to, though. I mean, like, look, I'm broke. I understand. Again, if you want to check me out on like every other site, including YouTube, where we can post we post VODs in case you miss a stream, Twitter and all of that, feel free to click on the links. And if you want to join the Discord to continue the discussion, it's also there. Yeah, I don't have much else to say here. So we're going to see who all is live, chat, and see who we're going to raid. Who we're going to go say hello to. Teehee. All right, chat. Let's go say hello to Biscuits. Let me make sure Biscuits is not just about to end stream or something. No, he's not. Perfect. All right, chat. We do have a raid message. If you type in !raid, I'm trying to figure out how to do this. If you want to go ahead and copy and paste that and say hello to our lovely friend Biscuit, that's really appreciated. He is absolutely fantastic. He's an ADHD nerd like me, and yeah. So go say hi. Whee! Oh, I didn't click start raid, so I thought I was clicking the raid button, but I didn't click start raid, chat. Okay, now go say hi.